Uh, so my name is Angelina Manola. The title of my presentation, as you can see in the slide, is From Passion to Action, From Action to Lesson, Plutarch's Alexander, as Fotini already said. This is a part of my PhD thesis, which aims, which aims to provide an alternative approach to ancient person-centered texts for students aged 12 to 15, and is based on the emotions of a leader. So in this presentation, I'm going to discuss a brief sample of my project related to the life of Alexander, written by Plutarch. In the first part, the theoretical, I have followed a specific method. First of all, I have isolated and categorized the wide variety of emotions presented in the Plutarchian biography of Alexander the Great. Secondly, using bibliography related to emotions, I have quoted in parallel to the ancient Greek words or phrases, their modern Greek and English translation. And thirdly, the last part of this process is the double question. What consequences each emotion caused to the protagonist and how did it affect the flow of his life? In the following 3 slides, you can see a part of the Excel I have created for the emotional terminology in the Plutarchian life of Alexander. Here I have collected the words and phrases related to the emotions. The first part, you can see the first one with the words and the phrases related to emotions, and the first part of which, the blue one, which is anger, if you can see it, is an example I'm going to discuss later, and their modern Greek and English translation. In this slide, you can see the kind of emotion, in other words, to whom or to what does Alexander feel this way, the text citation, and its integration in the context of the text. And finally, in this image, you can see the results each emotion has caused to Alexander and the people around him according to the text. This summarized information makes it easier for teenagers, firstly, to understand better a part of the world's history, and secondly, to realize the power of emotions that can easily lead people to actions either beneficial or destructive for both themselves and for others. So we need to control them. Here we have the example of anger, as said before, or in Greek, thymos or yi. This emotion appears repeatedly in key moments of the biography. In the vast majority of cases, whenever Alexander appears to be overwhelmed by anger, he is driven to spasmodic and impulsive moves, dangerous for him and for those around him. Such a case is when a good friend of him, named Clitus, provoked him, and he, unable to restrain his anger, combined with drunkenness, attacked him and finally killed him with a spear. Plutarch uses here the 2 phrases you can see on the board, οργήν και μέθην, and ουκέτι φέρον την οργήν, for which I have provided the English translation of Perseus Digital Library. Anger and intoxication furnished occasion for the evil genius of Clitus, no longer able to restrain his anger. Of course, when Alexander recovered, he realized the crime he had committed. He couldn't control his grief and spent the night weeping, as Plutarch informs us. Ευθύς απήκαινε ο θυμός αυτόν, την τε νύχτα κακός κλαίον διήνεγε και την επιούσαν ημέραν ήδη το βοάν και θρηνήν απειρικός άναυτος έκητο, βαρύς αναφέρον στεναγμούς. In other words, the king's anger departed from him. Here, he spent the night and the following day in bitter lamentations and at last lay speechless, worn out with his cries and wailing, having deep groans. This emotional eruption of Alexander can be during a lesson the center of a discussion between students and teacher. Altogether, can they conclude some assumptions about the deeper reasons for that event? For instance, we can't overlook the fact that, as Robinson observes in one of his studies, Emotion as Process, you can see the bibliographic references at the end of the presentation. Anger is an emotion that requires asymmetrical power. Not everyone has the right to feel like that, just those who have the power. Alexander here possibly represents this model. He can't stand that someone lower in authority insults him, and combined with his drunkenness, he reacts this way. All these are, of course, suppositions, but in a classroom can give food for thought and reflection. Through this theoretical and text-centered analysis of the emotion of anger, students firstly can be taught about the contradictory aspects of the historical leader Alexander the Great that had both negative and positive effects, and secondly, become aware of the situations where the absence of moderation and self-restraint can lead to, and last but not least, learn how to act in a specific circumstances through the example of a timeless hero. The above objectives can be achieved in a particularly interesting way for students than just through reading a text and some semantic diagrams. The information will be transferred in a new website and will be enriched by linguistic and interactive activities, either connected to the text and the historical knowledge or to the emotions and their effects. This way, students will combine the reading of the text and the diagrams with the practicing of their knowledge and the development of their minds. In the next slides, I'm going to present you some activities for this aim. The first category of exercises will be the closed type activities. Such example is a quiz with the use of the digital tool, for example, Word Wall. The aim here is to understand better the historical information given in its text through pictures, matching exercises, anagrams, and categorization activities. The following, you can see in the stars, is a sample of such activity. First, we can anagram the battles' names, and secondly, categorize them depending on their chronological sequence or depending on the winner. Another representative kind of activity that can make students both understand the historical events and sharpen their critical thinking even further is to ask them to think of another option of the story given. An instance for the aforementioned case is what if. Think and present us what would have happened if Alexander had controlled himself towards Clitus' offense. Through questions that seem pretty simple to everyone, teenagers will put their mind in action and will also consider the different directions in which they themselves can be led to as well. An indicative answer to this question would include the positive results of self-restraint, and so students would have a comprehensive overview of acting in one or in another way. An extension to the previous and an even more interesting for students activity could be the role playing. What would you do if you were Alexander? Why would you act like that? Again, with the help of simple questions, students can learn what happened, how to use the appropriate arguments in order to substantiate an opinion, and what are the consequences of their choices. Those were some activity possibilities that can facilitate the contact between students, and here the biography of Alexander. Here you can see some of my bibliography, and I would like to sum up by saying that even though I am at a very early stage of my research and I haven't studied enough yet, I have noticed many studies that try to connect the ancient biographic text with the method of learning through examples, and others that discuss the topic of emotions. Professor Papadopoulou suggested me some recent studies, one of which is with the bolts, teaching classics as an applied subject, in which I found that what I want to do to present another way of teaching and the ancient texts to students and learning through them how to act and react in different circumstances of our lives is an emerging scientific field, applied studies, which can provide a huge variety of possibilities on how to combine the two, classical studies and current situations and problems. Oh, I hope that at the next meeting I will have something more to say about them. Thank you.